There's a quiet truth we learn far too late. Certain objects have no price, but they can cost us everything. They cost us our peace, our dignity, and sometimes the version of ourselves we believed was unbreakable. For me, that truth came in the form of a silver bracelet, a delicate piece of jewelry that on another woman's wrist became the mirror that shattered my life, only so I could finally pick up my own pieces. The day I saw the photograph, the world didn't collapse with a roar. It unraveled in a deafening silence. There he was, smiling at a social event I wasn't invited to. And next to him, her hand rested casually on his arm, and on her wrist, the jewel gleamed. A small silver clover, dangling from a thin chain. The exact design I had shown him months before, on an ordinary night, my voice thick with a desire I rarely allowed myself to express. In that instant, the betrayal took on a shape, a scent, and a sound. It smelled of the cold coffee on my desk, sounded like the rain against the office window, and had the exact shape of that clover. He didn't cheat on me with another woman. He cheated on me with the proof that my whispered dreams were the script for someone else's desires. He thought that gesture would define me as the victim, the abandoned woman. He didn't know that in that very moment of silence and pain, another woman was being born inside of me. A woman who didn't cry, but calculated. With a few clicks on my computer, I wouldn't just close his bank accounts. I would forever close the door on the woman he thought I was. This isn't a story about a broken heart. It's the story of a soul being rebuilt. It's about learning, in the most brutally honest way, the vast difference between the price of a gift and the priceless value of oneself. If stories like this resonate with you, like this video and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Our story, like so many others, began with the promise of paradise. He was charming, ambitious, the kind of man who filled any room with his presence. And I was the perfect partner. The one who understood the long work hours, the one who organized his life with the efficiency of an executive and the devotion of a saint. I built my identity around being his safe harbor, the rock upon which he built his empires, not realizing the tide was slowly washing away my own ground. Our life was a painting for the outside world. Expensive dinners, exotic trips, declarations of love on social media that garnered dozens of likes and envious comments. We were the couple who had it all, but the devil, as they say, is in the details. And our detail was the silence. The silence that fell whenever I tried to talk about me. Not the big things, but the small ones. My aspirations, my fears, my tiny dreams. I remember one Sunday afternoon, we were window shopping in no hurry. I saw the bracelet in a small artisan jewelry shop. "Look, honey, how delicate," I said. "A lucky clover. I think I need a little luck." He smiled, that distant smile I had learned to interpret as a polite full stop. He heard the words, but my need, my vulnerability behind them, was background noise he simply tuned out. Today, I understand. Love, real love, doesn't manifest in grand declarations for an audience, but in the attentive listening to whispers when no one else is looking. That absence of listening wasn't an oversight. It was a policy. The signs were all there, like little red flags planted in the soil of my denial. His phone, once a forgotten object on any corner of the house, became an extension of his body. Always. Screen down. The last-minute meetings that stretched into the early morning became the soundtrack to my lonely nights. I would ask, and the answers were always vague, coded in an impatience that made me feel guilty for doubting. "You're too stressed," he'd say. "Trust me." And I trusted, because shattering that trust was more terrifying than living with the doubt. There was a day when the truth almost ran me over. I was looking for a document in his car's glove compartment and found a small blue velvet box. My heart did a somersault in my chest. A mix of hope and panic flooded me. Was it for me? Was it a silent apology for all the recent distance? I took the box, my hands trembling, and waited for him to return. When he got in the car, I showed it to him, with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "What's this?" I asked, my voice a thread. The color drained from his face. For a second, I saw the panic in his eyes, the raw, naked truth. But he was fast. a master of disaster recovery. He forced a laugh and said, "Oh, this, you almost ruined the surprise. It's for my mother's birthday." He took the box from my hand and put it away. And I, desperate for any crumb of normalcy, felt a sick sense of relief. The relief of someone who chooses the comfortable lie over the devastating truth. In that moment, the universe gave me a chance to see, but I squeezed my eyes shut. Years later, a therapist would explain to me the Gottman's love maps, the importance of knowing your partner's inner world. My map wasn't just outdated. It pointed to a treasure that I would discover was never meant for me. I was navigating alone in an ocean I believed was ours. If you are feeling the tension of this story and want to see how it resolves, subscribe now so you don't miss the end of this incredible transformation. And then Tuesday came. A gray Tuesday with a fine, persistent rain that seemed to wash the color from the world. I was in my home office, procrastinating on a spreadsheet, when boredom led me to scroll through a social media feed. A photo posted by a mutual acquaintance caught my eye. It was from a business cocktail party the night before. And there he was, flawless in his expensive suit. And next to him, her. The caption said something about celebrating success with special people. On impulse, a masochistic impulse, I clicked on her profile, which was public. And that's when I saw it. It wasn't the first photo. It was the fifth or sixth. A selfie, taken in a more intimate setting, maybe a restaurant. She was smiling at the camera, her head tilted slightly, and on her wrist, catching the ambient light, was the bracelet. The silver clover, the delicate clasp, the exact design from my memory, from my whispered wish. The world stopped. The sound of the rain disappeared. The only sound was my own breathing, shallow and quick. The click of the mouse as I zoomed in on the image sounded like a gunshot in the silence of my apartment. The betrayal was no longer a suspicion, a shadow. It was a high-resolution image with hundreds of pixels of brutal clarity. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel sadness. What I felt was a cold that started at the tips of my fingers and crept up my arms, settling in my chest. It was the cold of understanding. The understanding that I wasn't even the second choice. I was the rehearsal. My desires, my tastes, my little dreams were the laboratory where he tested the gifts he would give to her. I didn't break anything. I didn't call him crying. I stood up from my chair, walked slowly to the bathroom, and faced my reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at me had sunken eyes, but there were no tears. There was a strange light in them, a light of feverish clarity. In that mirror, I didn't see a victim. I saw an accomplice to my own erasure. I remembered every time I swallowed a sharp retort, every time I justified his rudeness as fatigue, every time I shrank a dream of mine so as not to disturb the grandeur of his. The bracelet wasn't the disease. It was just the final symptom that confirmed the diagnosis. I went back to the office. I sat in the same chair where my illusion had died minutes before. But now, I was no longer the same person. The grief was productive. It lasted exactly 7 minutes. After it came strategy. He had built his career on my foundation. Our company, a market success, was my idea, nurtured with my late-night work and my networking skills. The joint accounts, the investments, the stock portfolio. It was all interconnected. But the mind behind the organization, the architect of our prosperity, had always been me. He was the face, the charismatic facade. I was the invisible foundation. And a foundation, when it decides to move, takes the whole building with it. I opened my computer. I clicked on the folder named Finances. And with a calmness I didn't know I possessed, I began to work. Transfer by transfer. Email by email. Document by document. I wasn't destroying anything. I was just meticulously separating what was mine by right and by effort. 2 days of absolute silence passed. I acted with a frightening normality. He came home on Thursday night, humming, and tried to kiss me. I turned my face away. It was the first time in 5 years. He found it strange, but didn't comment. He said he needed to stop by the supermarket to buy some wine. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. It was him. His voice was no longer smooth. It was harsh, metallic, laced with a confused fury. My card was declined. A pause. All of them. What the hell did you do? I was sitting on the couch, the same one from that Sunday afternoon, with a steaming cup of tea in my hands. My voice, when it came out, surprised even me with its steadiness. I didn't do anything, I replied, and took a sip of tea. I just organized things, separated what's mine. Remember the company? The minutes from the meeting where you relinquished your majority stake in exchange for a consulting position with annual bonuses. I executed the misconduct clause. You are no longer a consultant. The bonuses obviously have been cancelled. He was silent on the other end of the line. I could almost hear his frantic thoughts. The accounts I manage, I continued, the ones that hold 80% of our assets, have been frozen for an internal audit. Irregular spending patterns. You know, and this house, well, the lease has always been in my name only. Consider this a 24-hour eviction notice. His silence was heavy, dense. Finally, he managed to speak, his voice a strangled whisper. Why? And that's when I gave him the only truth that mattered. I saw the bracelet, I said, with the same calm, on her wrist. It's truly beautiful. I sincerely hope its sentimental value is enough to pay for your hotel tonight. Because its monetary value, I assure you, won't be. And I hung up. For the first time, I didn't wait for his response. I no longer needed it. Today, months later, life has a new texture. It's more real, less shiny to others perhaps, but infinitely more solid for me. The company under my sole management has flourished. I discovered I had a capacity for leadership that my former life as a supporting actress would never have allowed to surface. The house is quieter, but it's a silence of peace, not absence. On my wrist now, there is a bracelet, one I bought for myself. It doesn't have a clover, but a small, imperfect circle to remind me that perfection is a mirage, but integrity is real. It reminds me of 3 lessons I paid a high price to learn. First, our intuition doesn't scream. It whispers. It is our duty to create the silence necessary to hear it. Second, our worth is not a stock on the market, rising or falling according to someone else's opinion. It is a private treasure, and we are its sole guardians. And the third, the most liberating of all, self-love is not a destination. It is a practice. It is the conscious choice, repeated every day, to be the architect of your own happiness and not just a tenant in someone else's project. That betrayal was the worst thing that ever happened to me. And it was also the best, because it broke me so completely that I had no choice but to rebuild myself from scratch, but this time on an unshakable foundation, my own. If you, in any way, have ever felt invisible, devalued, or had your dreams used as a rough draft, know that the greatest and most spectacular plot twist is not the one you inflict on the outside world. It's the one you silently operate within yourself. If you like this story of transformation, hit the like button, subscribe for more content like this, and share your strength in the comments if this story awakened something in you. If you have ever had to fight to rebuild yourself and reclaim your space, comment below. I am my greatest investment.